The Brothers Grimm, the story of the youth who went forth to learn what fear was. A certain father had 2 sons, the eldest of whom was smart and sensible, and could do everything, but the younger was stupid, and could neither learn nor understand anything. And when people saw him, they said, "There's a fellow who will give his father some trouble." When anything had to be done, it was always the elder who was forced to do it, but his father asked him to fetch anything when it was late, or in the night time, and the way led through the churchyard, or any other dismal place. He answered, "Oh no, father, I will not go there. It makes me shudder." For he was afraid. Or when stories were told by fire at night, which would make his flesh creep, the listeners sometimes said, "Oh, it makes us shudder." The younger sat in the corner and listened with the rest of them, and could not imagine what they could mean. They were always saying, "It makes me shudder. It makes me shudder." "It does not make me shudder," he thought. "That too must be an art of which I understand nothing." Now it came to pass that his father said to him one day, "Listen to me. You follow in the corner there, and you are growing tall and strong, and you too must learn something by which you could earn your living. Look at how your brother works, but you do not even earn your salt." "Well, father," he replied, "I am quite willing to learn something. Indeed, if it could be managed, I should like to learn how to shudder. I don't understand that at all yet." The elder brother smiled when he heard that, and thought to himself, "Good God, what a blockhead that brother of mine is. He will never be good for anything as long as he lives. He who wants to be a sickle must bend himself early." The father sighed and answered to him, "You shall soon learn what it is to shudder, but you will not earn your bread by that." Soon after the sexton came to the house on a visit, and the father bewailed his trouble, and told him how the younger son was so backward in every respect that he knew and had nothing and learned nothing. "Just think," he said, "when I asked him how he was going to earn his bread, he actually wanted to learn to shudder." "If that be all," replied the sexton, "he can learn that with me. Send him to me. I will soon polish him." The father was glad to do it, for he thought, "It will train the boy a little." The sexton therefore took him to his house, and he had to ring the bell. After a day or two, the sexton awoke him by midnight, and bade him arise and go up into the church tower and ring the bell. "You shall soon learn what shuddering is," thought he, and secretly went there before him. And when the boy was at the top of the tower, and turned round, and was just going to take hold of the bell rope, he saw a white figure standing the opposite of the sounding hole. "Who is there?" he cried, but the figure made no reply, and did not move or stir. "Give an answer," cried the boy, "or take yourself off. You have no business here at night." The sexton, however, remained standing motionless, that the boy might think he was a ghost. The boy cried a second time, "What do you want here? Speak if you are an honest fellow, or I will throw you down the steps." The sexton thought, "He can't pretend to be as bad as his words," uttered no sounds, and stood as if he was made of stone. Then the boy called to him for a third time, and as that was also to no avail, he ran against him and pushed the ghost down the stairs, so that it fell 10 steps and remained lying there in the corner. Thereupon he rang the bell and went home. Without saying a word, he went to bed and fell asleep. The sexton's wife waited a long time for a husband, but did not come back. At length she became uneasy, and wakened the boy, and asked, "Do you not know where my husband is? He climbed up by the tower before you did." "No, I don't," replied the boy, "but someone was standing by the sounding hole on the other side of the steps, and as he would neither give an answer nor go away, I took him for a scoundrel, and I threw him down the stairs. Just go there and you will see if it was he. I should be sorry if it were." The woman ran away and found her husband, who was lying moaning in the corner. He had broken his leg. She carried him down, and then loud screams she hasted to the boy's father. "Your boy," she cried, "has been the cause of a great misfortune. He has thrown my husband down the steps and made him break his leg. Take the good-for-nothing fellow away from our house." The father was terrified, and ran there and scolded the boy. "What wicked tricks are these?" he said. "The devil must have put this into your head." "Father," he replied, "do listen to me. I am quite innocent. He was standing there by the night, like one who was intending to do some evil. I did not know who he was, and I have warned him 3 times, either to speak or to go away." "Ah," said the father, "I have nothing but unhappiness with you. Go out of my sight, and I will see you no more." "Yes, father." "Right, willingly. Wait only until it is day. Then I will go forth and learn how to shudder, and then I shall, at any rate, understand one art which will support me." "Learn what you will," said the father. "It is all the same to me. Here are 50 tailors for you. Take these and go into the wide world, and tell no one where you came from and who your father is, for I have reason to be ashamed of you." "Yes, father, it shall be as you will. If you desire nothing more than that, I can easily keep it in mind." When the day dawned, therefore, the boy put his 50 thalers into his pocket, and went forth on the great highway, continually said to himself, "If I could but shudder, if I could but shudder." Then a man approached, who heard this conversation which the youth was holding with himself, and when they had walked a little further down to where they could see the gallows, the man said to him, "Look, there is the tree where 7 men have married the ropemaker's daughter, and now learning how to fly. Sit down below it, and wait till night comes. You will then learn how to shudder." "If that is all that is wanted," answered the youth, "it is easily done. But I will learn how to shudder as fast as that. You shall have my 50 tailors. Just come back to me early in the morning." Then the youth went down to the gallows, and sat below it, and waited till evening came. As he was cold, he lighted himself a fire, but at midnight the wind blew so sharply that in spite of the fire he could not get warm. As the wind knocked the hanged men against each other, they moved backwards and forth, and he thought to himself, "You shiver below by the fire, but those up there must freeze and suffer." And as he felt pity for them, he raised the ladder, climbed up, unbound one of them after another, and brought down all 7. Then he stirred the fire, blew it, and set them around it to warm themselves. But they sat there and did not stir. The fire caught their clothes, so he said, "Take care, or I will hang you up again." The dead man, however, did not hear, but were quite silent, and let their rags go on burning. At this he grew angry, and said, "If you will not take care, I cannot help you. I will not be burnt with you." He then hung them, each of them up in his turn. Then he sat down by the fire and fell asleep. The next morning, when the man came, he wanted to have the 50 tailors, and said, "Well, do you know how to shudder?" "No," he answered. How was I to get to know? Those fellows up there did not open their mouth, and they were so stupid they have left a few old rags which they had on their bodies get burned. Then the man saw that he would not get his 50 tailors that day, and went away saying, "One of this kind has never come my way before." The youth likewise went his way, and once again began to mutter to himself, "Ah, if only I could shudder! If only I could shudder!" A wagon-goer, who was striding behind him, heard that, and asked, "Who are you?" "I don't know," answered the youth. Then the wagon-goer asked, "From where do you come from?" "I know not." "Who is your father?" "That I may not tell you." "What is it that you're always muttering between your teeth?" "Ah," replied the youth, "I do so wish I could shudder, but no one can teach me how to do it." "Give up your foolish chatter," said the wagon-goer. "Come, go with me. I shall see about a place for you." The youth went with the wagon-goer, and in the evening they arrived at an inn where they had wished to pass the night. Then at the entrance of the room the youth again said quite loudly, "If I could but shudder! If I could but shudder!" The host, who had heard this, laughed and said, "If that is your desire, there ought to be a good opportunity for you here." "Ah, be silent," said the hostess. "So many inquisitive persons have already lost their lives. It would be a pity and shame if such beautiful eyes as these should ever see the light of day again." But the youth said, "However difficult it may be, I will learn it, and for this purpose I have journeyed forth." He let the host have no rest until the latter told him that not far from here stood a haunted castle, where anyone who could easily learn what shuddering was, if he would but sleep in there for 3 nights, the king promised that he who would have ventured should have his daughter as wife, and she was the most beautiful maiden the sun shone on. Great treasures likewise lay in the castle, which were guarded by evil spirits, and these treasures would then be freed, and would make a poor man rich enough. Already many men have gone into the castle, but yet none have come out again. Then the youth went the next morning to the king, and asked if he were allowed he would watch 3 nights in the haunted castle. The king looked at him, and as the youth pleased him, he said, "You may ask for 3 things to take into the castle with you, but they must belong without life." Then he answered, "Then I ask for a fire, a turning lathe, and a cutting board with a knife." The king had these things carried into the castle with him during the day. When the night was drawing near, the youth went up and made himself a bright fire in one of the rooms, placed the cutting board and knife beside it, and seated by the turning lathe. "Ah, if I could but shudder," said he, "but I shall not learn it here either." Towards midnight he was about to poke his fire. As he was blowing it, something suddenly from the one corner. "Ah, mule, how cold we are! You simpletons," he cried. What are you crying about? If you were cold, come take a seat by the fire and warm yourselves." And when he had said that, 2 great black cats came with one tremendous leap, and sat down on each side of him, and looked savagely at him with their fiery eyes. After a short time, when they had warmed themselves, they said, "Comrade, shall we have a game of cards?" "Why not?" he replied, "but just show me your paws." Then they stretched out their claws. "Oh," he said, "what long nails you have! Wait, I must cut them first for you." Therefore he seized by the throats, and put them on the cutting board, and screwed their feet fast. "I have looked at your fingers," he said, "and my fancy for card playing is gone." He struck them dead and threw them into the water. But when he had made away with these two, and was about to sit down again by the fire, out from every hole and corner came black cats and black dogs with red-hot chains, and more of them came until he could no longer stir, and they yelled horribly, and got on his fire, pulled it to pieces, and pulled it out. He watched them for a while quietly, but at last, when they were going too far, he seized his cutting knife and cried, "Away with ye vermin!" and began to cut them down. Part of them ran away, but the others he killed and threw out into the fish pond. When he came back, he fanned the embers of the fire again and warmed himself. And as he thus sat, his eyes would keep open no longer, and he felt a desire to sleep. Then he looked around and saw a great bed in the corner. "That is very thing for me," he said, and got into it. When he was just going to shut his eyes, however, the bed began to move on its own accord, and went over the whole of the castle. "That's right," he said, "but go faster." The bed then rolled on as if its 6 horses were harnessed to it, up and down, over thresholds and steps, but suddenly, hop, hop, it turned over upside down, and lay on him like a mountain. But he threw the quilts and pillows up in the air and got out, and said, "Now anyone who likes may drive," and lay down by his fire, and slept till it was day. In the morning the king came, and when he saw him lying there on the ground, he thought the evil spirits had killed him, and he was dead. He then said, "After all, it is a pity. He is a handsome man." The youth heard it and got up and said, "It has not come to that yet." Then the king, astonished, but very glad, and asked him how he fared. "Very well indeed," he answered. "One night is past. The 2 others will get over likewise." He then went to the innkeeper, who had opened his eyes very wide, and said, "I never expected to see you alive again. Have you learned how to shudder yet?" "No," he said. "It is all in vain. If someone would but tell me." The second night he again went up to the old castle, sat down by the fire, and once more began his old song, "If I could but shudder." When midnight came with uproar, the noise of trembling about was heard. At first it was low, but grew louder and louder, and then it was quiet for a while, and at length, with a loud scream, half a man came down the chimney and fell before him. "Hullo!" he cried. "Another half belongs to this. This is too little." Then the uproar began again. There was a roaring and hollowing, and the other half fell down likewise. "Wait," said the youth, "I will just blow up the fire a little for you." When he had done that, he looked around, and the 2 pieces were joined together, and a frightful man was standing in his place. "That is no part of our bargain," said the youth. "The bench is mine." The man wanted to push him away. The youth, however, would not allow it, but thrust him off with all of his strength, and seated himself again in his own place. Then still more men fell down, one after another. They brought 9 dead men's legs and 2 skulls, and set them up, and played 9-pins with them. The youth also wanted to play, and said, "Can I join you?" "Yes, if you have any money." "Money enough," he replied, "but your balls are not quite round." Then he took the skulls and put them in the lathe, and turned them till they were round. "There, now they will roll better," he said. "Hurrah! There it goes merrily." He played with them, and lost some of his money, but when it struck 12, everything vanished from its sight. He lay down and quietly fell asleep. The next morning the king came to inquire after him. "How was it fared with you this time?" he asked. "I have been playing at 9-pins," he answered, "and lost quite a couple of farthings." "Have you not shuddered then?" What?" he said. "I have made merry, but if I did but know what it is to shudder. The third night he sat down again on his bench and said quite sadly, "If only I could shudder." When it grew late, 6 tall men came in and brought a coffin. Then he said, "Ha ha, that is certainly my little cousin who had died only a few days ago." And he had beckoned with his finger and cried, "Come, little cousin, come." They placed the coffin on the ground, but he went to it and took off the lid, and a dead man lay therein. He felt his face, but it was cold as ice. "Stop," he said, "I will warm you a little," and went to the fire and warmed his hands and laid it on the dead man's face, but he remained cold. Then he took him out and sat him by the fire, and laid him on his breast and rubbed his arms, that the blood might circulate again. As this also did no good, he thought to himself, "When 2 people lie in bed together, they warm each other." He then carried him to the bed, covered him, and laid down by him. After a short time, the dead man became warm too, and began to move. Then said the youth, "See, little cousin, have I not warmed you?" The dead man, however, got up and cried, "Now I will strangle you." "What?" he said. "Is that the way to thank me? You shall at once go into your coffin again." He took him up and threw him into it, and shut the lid. Then came the 6 men and carried him away again. "I cannot manage to shudder. I shall never learn it as long as I live here." Then the man who entered, who was taller than all the others, and looked terrible. He was old, however. He had a long white beard. "You wretch," cried he, "you shall learn what it is to shudder, for you shall die." "Not so fast," cried the youth. "If I am to die, I shall have a say in it." "I will soon seize you," said the fiend. "Softly, softly. Do not talk so big, as I am as strong as you are, and perhaps even stronger." "We shall see," said the old man. "If you are stronger, I will let you go. Come, we will try." Then he led by the dark passages to a smith's forge, took an axe, and with one blow struck an anvil onto the ground. "I could do better than that," said the youth, and went to the other anvil. The old man placed himself near, and wanted to look on, as his white beard hung down. Then the youth seized the axe, and split the anvil with one blow, and struck the old man's beard with it. "Now I have you," he said. "Now it is you who will have to die." Then he seized an iron bar, and beat the old man till he moaned and entreated him to stop, and he would give him great riches. The youth drew out the axe and let him go. The old man led him back to the castle in the cellar, and showed him 3 chests full of gold. "Of these," he said, one part is for the poor, the other for the king, the third is yours." In the meantime it struck 12, and the spirit disappeared. The youth, therefore, was left in darkness. "I shall still abide to find my way out," he said, and felt around, found the way out of the room, and slept there by his fire. The next morning the king came and said, "Now you must have learned what shuddering is." "No," he answered. "What can it be? My dead cousin was here, and a bearded man came and showed me a great deal of money below, but no one told me what it was to shudder." Then said the king, "You have delivered the castle from enchantment, and shall marry my daughter." "That is all very well," said he, "but I still not know what it is to shudder." Then the gold was brought up, and the wedding celebrated. But however the young king loved his wife, and however happy he was, he still always said, "If I could but shudder, if I could but shudder." And at last she was angry at this. Her waiting maid said, "I will find a cure for him. He shall soon learn what it is to shudder." She went out to the stream, which followed through the garden, and had a whole bucketful of guerdons brought to her. At night the young king was sleeping. His wife was to draw the clothes off him, and empty the bucket of cold water into the gardens all over him, so that he and the little fishes would sprawl out about him. When this was done, he woke up and cried, "Oh, what makes me shudder so? What makes me shudder so, dear wife? Ah, now I know what it is to shudder." The end.